But the two summe, which just means a summation, right, a collection, is or a summary. The one is against the Gentiles, how to argue with them, but the other is the summary of theology. So if you have theological questions, you just have to go to the Summa Theologica, which is online thanks to the New Advent site. There's actually lots of other opportunities, but I like the way the hypertext links to things in this one. But so, thinking about the angels, what are they? I mean, how many of you have thought about angels or genie? If you're Arabic, the jinn or jinn, the genies. I'm going to try to sing, no, I won't. Okay, I'll skip it. But you get the idea. You've seen.
You so should. You should.
I should. Well, I can't do Robin Williams very well.
That's okay. We won't judge you.
I'll skip it. I could do Madonna though.
Yeah, I'm down for that. That sounds like a love
Some boys love me, some boys hate me. I think they're okay as long as they give me proper credit. I don't turn away, yay, because we are living in a material world, and I am a material girl. You should see me when I wear the outfit too, 'cause just kidding. You shouldn't even think, don't even think it, I know, actually Aquinas is the one who says sinning is of course evil, but just the thought of a sin is the same. And it's interesting because today we think of us as having what we call mirror neurons, right? Which when we see, an actor doing something or whatever, we're subjectively experiencing that action ourselves, because in a sense, even if we're not doing the same act ourselves, our neurons fire as if they are. So it's kind of so we're mirroring in our minds what's going on, and literally when you're describing something, you're thinking it. And if you think about it that way, Aquinas seems to be pretty, much on track in that regard. How many of you have thought about angels when you were kids? You taught about them, guardian angel around my bed, that kind of, those old songs, Christmas songs or whatever, right? And you get all kinds of images of angels. Sometimes they're like little cherubs with wings and fat little baby bodies, with arrows. I don't know. Is that Eros, Cupid? Not angels necessarily. But you get the idea. They're cute little winged creatures. Why wings? Why do angels have wings?
They're graceful.
They're fast. They can be here 1 second and instantaneously in another place.
That's magic.
What is the definition of magic? Microwave ovens, the people that don't understand it, right? You think of it. I mean, really. What?
I had a whole circular argument with the guy one time over this.
Those are the
It was
best.
magic. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. It lasted like literally an hour.
Oh, that's even better. You still remember it. See? Did you marry him?
Not yet.
That's even better, right?
I've never seen him again. It's pretty fun.
No, but they're fast because they can be instantaneously from one place to another, maybe even multiple places at once. Like forces, for example, gravity. What are the forces, by the way, before I go on? Our contemporary view of forces.
Gravity.
Gravity, magnetic.
The small-
electromagnetic,
Just two.
and two
Strong and
nuclear.
weak.
Strong and weak nuclear.
I can't
So,
remember what they're
and they're
called.
actually all on a continuum, right? They're all on a continuum because they're all waves of energy, right? So, so let's look at what he says. By the way, what sex are angels? I asked, I think, at least one person that. What's the sex of angels? No guesses? Gabriel. Well, what do you think? Gabriel? Gabriel's the one with the sword, usually.
And they're usually depicted as being like masculine or men.
Well, one of my favorite pictures is the oh, that's not it. There it is. That's not a very good. There we go. That's a little bit better. So those are supposed to be angels, I think. Climbing the stairs. Notice they each have a musical instrument, so a choir. I think their sexuality is ambiguous. And that should be the case, because strictly speaking, angels cannot have a sex because they don't have bodies. We can imagine them as having bodies, and I think in some scriptural references or the early church fathers, they can talk about them as inhabiting a body. The same as demons, actually, right? That possess a body, but they don't actually have a body themselves. So let me look at, this is from the first, I should show you where it's from, but you could see it because it's in the Summa, first part, question 50, right? So is there any entirely spiritual creature altogether incorporeal? So remember, you're getting two different sides on every issue in the Summa, right? Because what Aquinas is doing is incorporating Aristotelian thinking into the dogma of the church, which is primarily Platonic. And so you end up with all these questions arising because of the difference between Plato and Aristotle. Strictly speaking, if you were looking at Plato and Aristotle, remember, for Plato, you have really two types of things. You have matter on the one hand, which Christianity would consider earth, and then heaven, which would be the ideal. So the ideal world versus the physical world. With Aristotle, you ended up, remember, with the four different categories associated with matter, the form, which would be the idea, the efficient cause, which would be what changed something, and then the teleos, or the purpose. So that's Aristotle. How does Aquinas merge the two of them? Well, let me use this here. He basically says they're both correct, and both have all four categories. What is the difference then? Well, the spiritual has spiritual substance, whereas the physical has material substance. So that's the main difference. So what is spiritual substance then? So it would seem that an angel is not entirely incorporeal. For what is incorporeal, it has a body, right? wait a minute, I want to go. It's corporeal when it has a body, incorporeal when it doesn't. It seems odd use of the prefix, but in any case, for what is incorporeal only as regards ourselves and not in relation to God is not absolutely incorporeal. But we have a church father, Damascene, who says in the Orthodox faith that an angel is said to be incorporeal and immaterial as regards us, but compared to God, it is corporeal and material. Therefore, he is not simply incorporeal. How do you explain this? Remember, it's going to be a spiritual substance, right? That's the answer eventually. Further, another objection. Nothing is moved except the body, as the philosopher, who's the philosopher? Aristotle, right? Says in physics or nature. But Damascene says that an angel is an ever movable intellectual substance. Therefore, an angel is a corporeal substance of a sort. Not the same as us, because it's a different kind of corpus. Further, Ambrose says, every creature is limited within its own nature, but to be limited belongs to bodies. Right? I mean, if you try to look, where's love end? There's no physical, limit to a concept, right? So, physical limit, right? Hatred is obviously not love, so there are intellectual limits to concepts, right? Therefore, every creature is corporeal. Now, angels are God's creatures, as appears from Psalm 148. Praise ye the Lord, all his angels, and further on, verse 4, for he spoke and they were made, he commanded and they were created. Therefore, angels are corporeal. But on the contrary, it is said in Psalm 103, who makes his angels spirits. And you might think, well, we've got a collection of scripture that comes from multiple traditions. It wasn't a coherent set of things. And then you've got all the church fathers that are also saying things, and that's not necessarily going to be coherent because they're coming at things from all different perspectives. Aquinas is faced with the dilemma of knowing what the church, the Orthodox, accepts with regard to all of these different scriptural elements and the different church fathers and what they've said. He's familiar from his training with Albertus Magnus, his teacher, who was also an Aristotelian, right? This is what is acceptable. These others are spurious, or maybe we don't have to pay attention to them. It's very complex, right? And he's trying to make sure that he accounts for all of these different things and figures out how to merge them. So his I answer that is how you can interpret all these conflicting positions in a way that makes common sense to everyone. It's going to be more complex. Might even think of it, and some people say this, that it's postmodern. Postmodern, what is postmodern? The main element of a postmodern philosophy, which we'll see towards the end of the course, is the idea that you look at things from a linguistic perspective. In this context, this is the meaning of it, but in this other linguistic context, this is the meaning of it, and so on. So in a way, they're arguing that Aquinas is doing that ahead of time, right? So there must be some incorporeal creatures. Sounds like a goofy thing to say, because creatures are created things, and yet they have to be incorporeal without bodies, right? For what is principally intended by God in creatures is good, and this consists in assimilation to God himself, and the perfect assimilation of an effect to a cause is accomplished when the effect imitates the cause according to that whereby the cause produces the effect, as heat makes heat. Now God produces the creature by his intellect and will. Hence the perfection of the universe requires that there should be intellectual creatures. Now, intelligence cannot be the action of a body, nor of any corporeal faculty, for every body is limited to here and now, hence the perfection, etc., etc., etc. So, they're intellectual, incorporeal substances, is his answer. And this is a rank between God and corporeal creatures. By the way, human beings are not like angels, although we are like them in some respects. We're not the same species, so to speak. In fact, the different angels, because they don't have bodies, have to be different in intellectual substance. So each angel is its own species. That's how that has to work out, by the way. So that's kind of interesting. How many angels are there? Perhaps an infinite number, but at the same time, they're different from one another because of their intellectual differences as opposed to their physical differences. Whereas